Have you ever considered if the phase where a man lives by himself could be the most liberating, the most serene, and perhaps the most significant part of his existence? Perhaps it was not something you anticipated. Maybe there was a separation after decades of effort to keep things intact. Maybe you lost a cherished companion whose absence words fail to capture. Or perhaps the children have left the nest now. The home is still, and for the first time in many years, it is just you. Initially, it seems odd. The quietness is more pronounced than any clamor ever was. Meals for one. Lights dimmed on your schedule. Celebrations take on a new form. Even the sound of your own steps feels foreign. There is a feeling of absence, of something absent, and it can weigh heavily. But occasionally, amid that stillness, something different emerges. Not isolation, but insight. Not grief, but openness. And gradually, without seeking approval, the man who devoted years to prioritizing others starts to reconnect with himself. In this video, we are going to delve into 9 genuine, profoundly experienced benefits of living alone as an older man. This is not a collection of superficial suggestions or vacant motivation. It is a contemplation drawn from actual experiences, real instances, and the subtle resilience that arises from deciding to embrace life completely, even in solitude. If you have ever surveyed your surroundings and pondered if this period is merely a conclusion, or if it might be a fresh start concealed, then remain with me because the insights you are about to encounter could assist you in viewing your own solitude through a fresh perspective. Benefit 1. True freedom. No one to ask. No one to please. There is a type of freedom that truly resonates after 60. It is not boisterous. It arrives without fanfare or elaborate displays. It appears in subtle instances when you recognize you do not need to consult anyone before determining the kind of day you wish to experience. You rise when your body indicates it is prepared. You brew coffee without the necessity for casual conversation. You leave the plates in the basin because no visitors are expected. And truthfully, you will address them eventually. There is no one inquiring about the evening meal, no one remarking on your routine, no one requiring your presence anywhere except where you currently are. John, a retired engineer from a quiet suburb in Chicago, shared something with me that has stayed in my mind. After his separation, he settled into a cozy cabin near Lake Michigan, the initial evening alone. He mentioned it felt as if the surroundings were too confining, too hushed. But by the conclusion of the first week, he discovered himself writing poetry once more, listening to jazz records he had not touched in decades, even swaying gently in the kitchen when unobserved. I had no idea how much of my essence I had stored away. He reflected. Now I can hear my own thoughts. I can hear myself exist. Living alone provides that. It offers you the area to exist as you are, without conforming to another's tempo. It allows you to decelerate or accelerate without verification. You commence constructing your days around what is significant to you, not from duty, not from habit, but from selection. And it is not about self-centeredness. It is about authenticity, about recalling that your time remains yours, that your inclinations, your small customs, your manner of navigating the day, they are important. After a lifetime of nurturing, adapting, compromising, and contributing, this form of freedom is not extravagance. It is restorative. It is sincere. It is deserved. And perhaps for the first time, you get to exist not as someone's spouse or guardian or supporter, but simply as yourself. No one to consult, no one to satisfy, just you. Finally, being sufficient. Benefit 2. Quiet heals what chaos damaged. When the commotion diminishes, something new commences. At the outset, the stillness can seem disconcerting, too motionless, too acute, too laden with recollections. But if you remain with it sufficiently, if you cease attempting to occupy it with broadcasts or discussions or errands. That stillness begins to transform. It ceases reverberating with absence and starts to settle like gentle sunlight through a pane. After years of nurturing a family, laboring extensively, and sharing quarters with others, most men overlook what authentic silence truly sounds like. Not the silence of disregard, but the variety that demands nothing from you, the variety that embraces you. Henry, 75, spent much of his life in a lively home in rural Texas. Children dashing through the corridors, suppers brimming with chatter and views. Then his partner departed, the offspring relocated, and he found himself solitary in the dawns. Initially, he saturated the atmosphere with sound, updates on the wireless, melodies in each chamber. But one dawn, he refrained from activating anything. He simply sat, mug and grasp, observing the vapor ascend and descend in the chill glow of early light. It felt like the first occasion in years I could perceive my own reflections. He confided, and I understood I was not shattered. I was merely weary, and silence is where I began to repair. Quiet affords the nervous system an opportunity to respire. The physique decelerates. The heartbeat stabilizes. Thoughts reclaim their path to equilibrium. You start to observe minor elements once more. The whisper of foliage, the groan of timber, the sensation of your respiration on a brisk morning. These are not diversions. They are summons. They prompt you that you are still present, still vibrant, still able to be touched by uncomplicated splendor. You do not need to flee the quiet. You need to heed it. Allow it to embrace you. Let it evolve into the area where sorrow can respire, where remorse can mellow, where the tempo of your existence can finally align with the cadence of your spirit. Because when you cease evading silence, you might discover that it is not vacant whatsoever. It is replete with all you have been too occupied to sense. What is one word that describes the tranquility you have found in hushed moments? Share silence in the comments below to let us know. Your experience could motivate someone else to accept their own stillness. If this strikes a chord, please subscribe to our YouTube channel to join our community of wisdom and reflection. Benefit 3. Your home, your rules. Total control over your space. There is something profoundly reassuring about entering a space that feels completely yours. No concessions, no discussions, no unspoken strain over arrangements or placements. Just a serene assurance. This is my dwelling and I fit within it. For numerous older men, this is the initial occasion in decades they have had complete authority over their living area. It is not about lavish furnishings or impeccable adornment. It is about significance. It is about being encircled by items that mirror who you are, not who you were compelled to become. William, 68, relocated to a simple cottage in the hills of Colorado after his spouse's passing. He possessed little, but he had liberty. He converted one wall into a tribute space, with images from his days in the army, his grandchildren as infants, his beloved hiking adventure. He positioned a weathered armchair near the window, precisely where the evening light filters in. A vintage phonograph spun folk melodies. No one else would arrange it this way. He grinned. But every element here resonates with me. That is the charm of it. You are no longer striving to dazzle anyone or maintain standards. You are crafting solace, not spectacle, and in doing so, you recapture something that frequently vanishes as we mature, a sense of possession over your existence. Studies indicate that possessing command over your surroundings, regardless of scale, can enhance mental well-being, alleviate unease, and even moderate cognitive deterioration. But beyond that, it simply feels rewarding. Selecting what you behold upon awakening, what seat you occupy when you peruse, what aroma persists in your cooking area. These minor choices murmur something potent. You still count here. So display the photographs you cherish. Retain the volumes you genuinely read. Prepare what you relish. even if it is the identical dish 4 evenings consecutively. Your home should feel like a warm, acquainted greeting each time you step inside. Because after a life of yielding to others, fulfilling requirements, sacrificing aspirations, this space, this home is where you finally get to declare without reluctance, this is me. Benefit 4, rediscovering yourself. Who are you when no one is watching? There is a peculiar stillness that settles after the roles diminish. No more hastening to gatherings. No one summoning you farther from the passage. No one inquiring about the meal. You recline in a seat you selected at a moment unscheduled by others. And abruptly, you are simply you, not the parent, not the partner, not the sustainer. Just a man inhaling, pondering, existing, and the inquiry gradually surfaces. Who am I now? For many men, that inquiry used to be interred beneath accountability. You transformed into what others required, occasionally magnificently, occasionally from sheer endurance. But when life quiets, when it is solely your voice in the chamber, there is room to ponder anew. What do I delight in? What do I value? What makes me feel vital? Not utilitarian, not dutiful, but vital. George, 67, devoted most of his career as a mechanic in Detroit. He was precise, always punctual, always reliable. But after retirement and a peaceful parting, he found himself in a modest studio with no appointments, no agendas, no one to tend. For weeks, he was uncertain how to proceed. Then one twilight, he retrieved a volume on history that had lingered on his ledge for years. He absorbed it gradually. Then he began sketching maps of old American trails. He acquired a second-hand bicycle and started exploring nearby parks at sunrise. I am not sure if it is exploration, he said, but I finally feel like I am experiencing the world again. And perhaps for the first time, I am beginning to perceive myself, too. Living alone offers that reflection, hushed but truthful. It encourages you to recall what you once adored, to investigate what still beckons you, and to attempt things without critique or exhibition. No one is observing. No one is evaluating. It is just you learning to coexist with yourself. Again, you may not uncover responses immediately. That is fine. The journey is the essence. You are not reinventing yourself. You are revealing what has always existed, awaiting that gradual return to the man beneath the roles, that rediscovery, that might just be the most revered path of all. What is one number that represents a passion you are rediscovering? Maybe the years since you last pursued it. Comment discovery below to share your journey. Your spark could illuminate the path for others finding themselves again. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay connected with stories of growth and renewal. Benefit 5, financial freedom. Lighter, simpler, and truly yours. There is a certain alleviation that arrives when the burden of monetary duties finally starts to lighten. For decades, your earnings may have extended in all directions: home loans, education costs, maintenance, family necessities, unforeseen crises. You managed it, often with understated forfeiture. But now, living alone, something alters. The rhythm decelerates, the requirements gentle, and your funds, what you possess, what you have preserved, what you elect to expend, it finally feels like it pertains to you. Financial liberty at this juncture is not about opulence, it is about lucidity. You commence perceiving what genuinely counts and what does not. The spacious residence that once sheltered a family. Perhaps now it is merely spaces you no longer need to occupy. Reducing size is not surrendering. It is releasing the disturbance, releasing what no longer suits your existence. And in that plainness, you acquire something profounder. Initiative. You determine where the funds allocate. Maybe it is a serene getaway, a fresh pursuit, a cozy seat you have always desired. Maybe it is simply knowing the expenses are settled and the pantry is stocked, and no one relies on you to support them any longer. You learn to exist with less, not from scarcity, but from sagacity. You cease pursuing and commence selecting. You are no longer expending to impress or to match or to uphold facades. You are expending for ease, for serenity, for delight, and perhaps for the first time. You expend without remorse. You no longer query, will they be all right? Before acquiring something uncomplicated for yourself, you no longer sense the subtle pang of placing your needs last. Now your selections mirror your principles, not endurance, not standing, but something more subdued, something more genuine. Living alone will not obliterate every monetary concern, but it clarifies the disturbance. It aids you in seeing what truly benefits your life, and in that area. Money ceases being merely a means to endure the month. It becomes a method to nurture yourself on your conditions at your pace. It is not about possessing more. It is about finally utilizing what you have in a manner that makes you feel complete. Benefit 6. Better mental health. No more expectations. Just peace. There is a type of tension that embeds so progressively you nearly forget it exists. The compulsion to maintain everyone's contentment, the strain of preserving unity, the perpetual sensation that your time, your vigor, even your sentiments belong to another. And then one day, you awaken in a space that is hushed. No one is awaiting you. No one is assessing your value by what you have accomplished today. You traverse your morning at your own tempo. The coffee savors more robust. The daylight feels milder. You exhale without realizing you have been restraining your breath for years. That is what peace can resemble. Not theatrical, not remote, just existent. When you live alone, the anticipations dissipate. You are no longer molding your words, your dispositions, or your resolutions around another's necessities. And in that liberty, your mind commences to gentle. The incessant clamor of performance wanes. The former pressure to elucidate yourself, validate your choices, or fulfill unvoiced demands, it is simply absent. Mental health in advanced years does not stem from seclusion. It stems from respite. Respite from the roles you bore for decades. Respite from being all to all. And in that respite, your nervous system begins to recalibrate. You discover yourself slumbering more profoundly, fretting less, feeling more anchored in your form, more comfortable in your reflections. Simple routines like a daily stroll, a few serene minutes with your breath, or reclining by the window with a warm beverage become remedy. Not because they mend everything, but because they remind you that composure is feasible, that this rendition of life does not have to be lived in safeguard. It can be lived in harmony. And yes, there are instances of solitude. That is authentic. But solitude is not the antithesis of peace. Occasionally they arrive concurrently. And with time, even that discomfort becomes milder because it is not intensified by bitterness or uproar or emotional load. It is just a subdued prompt that you are human, still sensing, still present. Living alone does not resolve everything, but it generates space. And sometimes space is precisely what the heart requires to commence healing. What is one word that captures the calm you are seeking in this season of life? Drop peace in the comments to share your thoughts. Your voice matters and could comfort someone feeling the same. We would be honored if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel to explore more moments of healing together. Benefit 7. Relationships become deeper. Less often, more meaningful. Something unforeseen occurs when you start devoting more time to solitude. You begin to appreciate connections differently, not by frequency or duration of exchanges, but by the sentiment they impart. When you are not encircled by individuals daily, you commence noticing who genuinely counts. And when they connect, it does not feel like compulsion. It feels like benevolence. The reality is, when you live alone, The clamor of superficial bonds begins to subside. You are no longer engaging in idle chatter from custom or enduring encounters that deplete more than they contribute. You cease pursuing intimacy, and instead you commence receiving it as a boon, not a requisition. A telephone conversation becomes something to anticipate. A midday meal with an adult offspring carries greater significance. Even a pen note or a straightforward thinking of you communication can remain in your heart for days. Because now when people appear, it is deliberate, it is selected, it is affection without timetable. Living alone also alters something within you. You no longer feel drawn in numerous emotional paths. You have the room to listen more attentively, to speak more candidly, to be fully attendant when someone reveals their heart. And when you speak, it is not merely words, it is contemplation, it is recollection, it is concern, unhurried. Some might believe that living alone results in detachment, but in many respects it results in refinement. You commence releasing bonds constructed on obligation, and you incline toward those rooted in verity. And while you may not encounter people daily, when you do, it signifies something. The intervals between meetings enrich the instances. The time separated fosters gratitude, and you start to realize you do not require a multitude to feel linked. Just a few hearts that still allocate space for yours, and perhaps that is what profound relationship truly is. Not perpetual presence, but shared significance across the tranquil intervals in between. Benefit 8, confidence and self-reliance return, like in your 20s, but wiser. Something astonishing happens when you begin handling matters independently again. Initially, it may feel unfamiliar, even aggravating. You struggle with a resistant container top. You decipher how to restore the internet connection. You learn to oversee your remedies without cues, but then, quietly and consistently, you observe something else ascending beneath the exterior. Assurance, not the variety you possessed in your youth. Vociferous, audacious, brimming with vitality, but something profounder, more stable, wiser. Living alone encourages you to rely on yourself anew, not because you must demonstrate anything, but because you are competent, and every minor act becomes a prompt of that truth. Repairing the faucet, arranging your statements, preparing your own supper precisely as you prefer it. There is pride in those moments, not because they are remarkable, but because they are yours. And in performing those things, you commence trusting yourself again. You recall that you have endured worse, that you have resolved tougher issues, that regardless of how your body feels today, your spirit still knows how to stand firmly. There is also something subtly potent about becoming your own proponent. You pose inquiries at the physician's visit. You administer your own timetable. You decide when you desire assistance and when you would rather attempt it yourself. And that decision, even when it leads to experimentation, becomes its own form of fortitude. You are not who you were at 20, and that is the essence. Because now you perform things not to prove you can, but because you know you still can. You have earned your autonomy, you have earned your cadence, and every time you navigate life alone, you reclaim something that was never misplaced, just concealed beneath years of tending to everyone else. Living alone does not mean you must do everything alone. But when you do, and when you choose to, it reminds you of who you are, capable, grounded, still learning, still developing, still standing resilient. What is one number that reflects a small victory you have achieved on your own recently? Comment strength below to celebrate your resilience. Your courage could encourage someone else to keep going. Benefit 9. Joy in the simple things. When ordinary moments become magic, as life decelerates, something lovely transpires. What once seemed commonplace begins to gleam. You start to notice the tender warmth of the morning sun gliding across your table. The way vapor spirals from your coffee cup, the soft murmur of branches outside your window, and suddenly these small things feel sacred. When you live alone, you are not dashing from one task to another. You are not ensnared in another's schedule. You move through your day with a gentleness that opens your eyes to moments you used to overlook. And those moments, those tiny, hushed, beautiful things begin to feel like sufficient. Joy no longer derives from accomplishment. It derives from attendance, from the texture of earth in your palms while caring for a garden, from the leisurely flipping of a cherished novel, from the familiar patter of rain on your rooftop at dusk. These are not majestic actions. They are not landmarks, but they are yours. And that is what renders them potent because they are not loaned. They are not sifted through another's necessity or haste. They arrive quietly and request only that you notice, that you be present for them. You commence realizing you do not need uproar to feel vibrant. You do not need acclaim to feel proud. You do not need a crowded home to feel connected. Sometimes just being there with yourself in peace is enough to fill your heart. Joy at this stage is not the pyrotechnics of youth. It is the candlelight of presence, and it burns steadily when you learn how to sit still enough to see it. Final reflection. Now that we have journeyed through these 9 subtle treasures of living alone, pause for a moment to survey your own surroundings, not with judgment, not with yearning, but with attentiveness. What does it echo back to you? Does it feel like a place where you truly dwell, or merely a place where you rest? It is easy to disregard the patterns that have accompanied us for years, to overlook the seat that no longer bolsters our frame, to ignore the stillness we have never reconciled with, to delay the minor adjustments that could render this chapter not just tolerable, but exquisite. You do not need to alter everything. Perhaps it is repositioning a chair nearer to the daylight. Maybe it is leaving your preferred volume accessible by the bedside. Maybe it is finally spinning that vintage album you adored in your 40s and allowing it to permeate the space once more. Living alone is not a setback. It is not a termination. It is a distinct form of liberty, a distinct form of resilience. And in that area, you get to determine what counts now, what delivers comfort, what delivers vitality, because you have labored diligently to construct this existence, to withstand sorrow, to nurture others, to appear repeatedly, even when unobserved. Do not permit these years to pass on automatic. Do not let the quiet be squandered. Let it sustain you. Let it remind you that you are still here, still selecting, still evolving, and perhaps this evening, instead of occupying the silence, you will sit with it. Maybe you will ignite a small candle, open the pane, breathe a bit more slowly, and sense, even for an instant, the subtle strength of being precisely where you are. Let us know in the comments what is one small change you will make this week to bring more comfort, meaning, or peace into your living space. And if this video provided you with something to contemplate, we hope you will like it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and share it with someone who might benefit from hearing this. Because sometimes the most straightforward message, shared at the opportune moment, can alter someone's entire day, perhaps even their life.